Today's topic is overcoming the spirit of fear. When it comes to the whole idea of the spirit of fear, what I've discovered is that a lot of assumptions are made around the whole idea of fear, and to some extent, some of the assumptions that are made cause some people to actually go against the scriptures. So, for example, if having fear means that you have the spirit of fear, a lot of people say that if you're going to do something, you should do it afraid. So if you're going to learn how to ski, go at it afraid. If you're going to learn how to do a particular skill or trade, do it afraid. If you want to fly to another country you've never flown before and you're afraid of flying, do it afraid. And out of that, some people say, okay, if I should do things in fear, then is there really a spirit of fear? Or what is the spirit of fear? Like when I'm flying, is that a spirit of fear? And if it is a spirit of fear and I'm supposed to do it afraid anyways, does that mean that when the Bible says that God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, it's okay for us to have a spirit of fear? And what I've discovered is, when it comes to fear, is that fear is much like love. In the English language, you use the word love, and the word love can mean that you love your spouse. The word love can mean that you love your dog. The word love can mean that you love pizza. And even though the word love is used, a person doesn't love pizza, I hope, the same way that they love their spouse. A person doesn't love their dog the same way that they love their son. So the word love is used in various contexts, but it has different meanings. So in the Greek, there are several words for the word love. So when you're talking about having a Christian love, or for us to love one another as brothers and sisters, you use the word agape love. So within the Christian realm, we should love each other with the love of God, which is agape love. And even this scripture that we're reading today, it talks about the spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. So the word love there is agape. We should love each other with the love of God. That's what agape love means. There are different forms of love, because you have another form of love called phileo, or Philadelphia. And what that means is a love that a brother or sisters or brother and sister have toward one another. It's kind of a family love. And in church, you can also have that too. But family love is different than God love. Family love, so long as you're behaving, we're good. But agape love, even when a person is not behaving, God sustains you and empowers you to love those who are unlovable. But I'm just talking about that because there are different definitions or different words used in Greek for the word love. So when we're talking about the spirit of fear, is that when it talks about the word timidity here, or it talks about the word fear, it uses a word called delia. So delia means to be afraid, or to be timid, or to be fearful, or to be a coward. So that is delia. And then there's another Greek word for phobia, or phobos. And what that means also is fear. It's very similar to the word phobia. And I would actually argue that the idea of a phobia is closer to the idea of the spirit of fear, because the word phobos, it talks about human fear. Human fear. So human fear is when a car is coming to hit me, I get scared. So that's human fear. So I want to step away because I don't want to get hit. So now you have the Leah, which is a certain kind of fear. And then you have phobos, which is another kind of fear. And then there's a third fear. I have difficulty pronouncing it, but it's the fear of God. So when we're talking about the fear of God is predominantly not to be a coward. It's predominantly not to be afraid, like you're afraid a car's going to hit you. The fear of God is predominantly a relational thing, which means that you have a deep respect and reverence for God. In fairness, though, the Bible does attached to the word phobos or phobia, which is kind of like a human fear. It also attaches that to God as well. Because if I'm sinning or I'm out of order, I should be afraid of God, not just respecting him. I should be afraid of his response. So there are three different kinds of words used for the word fear. So I didn't define Delia that much, but I'm going to come back to that. But phobos is human fear, to be afraid. So if I'm going to go on a plane and I'm afraid of flying, it's not that I'm a coward. It's not that I have no faith. It's just, this is a new experience and it's hard for me. So human beings have the emotion of fear. And the emotion of fear is not bad. The emotion of fear actually protects you. So now you have phobos. Then you have the fear of God. And the fear of God is good. Because the fear of God takes into consideration all of your life, and you include God in your decisions. Where you're going to live, how you're going to treat people, how you're going to speak, the way you're going to dress, the way that you think, how you schedule your life. When you have the fear of God, it opens up your understanding to put God first before all the other things that you do. But let's get back to this word Delia. And that's the word that's used when it talks about timidity in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. It says, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity." This word Delia means that you are perpetually afraid. That you're afraid when it makes no sense. You're afraid of things that you should not be afraid of. You're afraid of things happening that will not happen. The fear is fictitious. The fear is lost within a realm that's outside of reality. So when it's talking about God will not give us the spirit of fear, it's not talking about that we will not be afraid of things. It's not talking about that we will not be afraid to make decisions. It's not talking about that we will not fear God. It's talking about that we will not be so captivated by fear that we're anxious about things that are not real. So we're living in a time period where people are anxious about things that are not real. Forget about things that may happen. People are starting to be worried about things that are not going to happen. They're worried about if aliens are going to come down to the earth. Now, in fairness, it may happen, but I think more than likely it probably won't happen. And if it does happen, worrying won't be able to help you through that situation. We have fears that are not rooted in reality. We have fears of things that won't happen, or even worse, we have fear of things that did happen, but our understanding and our interpretation of it is not knitted in reality. But the reason I'm talking about this is because in order for us to be everything that God wants us to be, in order for our lives to move forward, we have to overcome these fears. Now, when I'm saying overcome these fears, I'm talking about this particular fear of being afraid for no reason, of being overcome with anxiety with no reality in base. So if I'm going to lose my job and I have anxiety, it makes sense. If I have a chemical imbalance in my body, maybe I have a sickness or illness and I feel anxious inside, that makes sense. That's when we should go to the doctor and we should get help if we're feeling anxiety and we don't fully understand it and we think it's a health situation. But when you rule out a health situation, you rule out a life situation, and you find that you're perpetually under this feeling of frustration or this feeling of anxiety or this feeling of fear, and you recognize that there is no medical solution to this, there is no solving a problem to this. Many people are caught under this whole idea of fear. When it comes to being caught in fear, there are different ways of looking at it, but I think that ultimately if you're going to have a solution, you have to include yourself in it to be able to overcome it. So I know sometimes people say that the spirit of fear is another spirit that comes and enters you or enters your life or whatever. And what I've discovered is if the Spirit of God needs to have my permission, if the Spirit of God needs to have my participation, if the Spirit of God needs to have my willingness to allow him to move, then I would believe that even something that is evil would have to have my permission to move and would have to have my permission to work in my life. So no matter what my philosophy is of how I could get into a place of fear, the solution to being free from fear is partnership, willing partnership with God, is trusting God and trusting the power of Jesus Christ to be able to pull me out of that situation. Before I move forward, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about it because I wanted to expand this whole idea of the Leah fear, or a fear that's not rooted in reality. So you have a guy in the Bible by the name of Saul. And Saul had a lot of real problems. Like, he had real problems. He had a Goliath that was standing in front of him that wanted to kill him. He had Philistines that were against him. He had Amalekites that wanted him dead. He had all kinds of enemies around him. So he was living in a real situation where he had things that he could be afraid of. But then God brings into his life a little kid. And when he brings a little kid into his life, his name is David. David fights for Saul, and he kills Goliath for Saul. David fights for Saul, and he loves Saul. And all of a sudden, Saul's mind turns against David because he sees the blessing of God on David, and he feels like David is going to replace him. The funny thing is, David was going to replace him. But his problem with David wasn't that David was a danger to him. His problem was that his mind created a philosophy and an idea that David was a danger to him. So because he continued to work under this spirit of fear, it's actually the fear in him that caused him to die and for David to take his place. Now, one could argue that David would have took his place anyways, but the one thing I know for sure, 100%, is that David would have never taken his place through physical violence. David would have never harmed Saul because he proved time and time again that he loved Saul. So because he proved time and time again that he loved Saul, if Saul now was living in the place of reality, Saul would understand that David is of no danger to him. David is his friend. And the thing about it is that throughout the scriptures, you have many people who have scenarios like this. Throughout real life, you have many people who have scenarios of this, where they're fearing things that will most likely not take place. They're fearing things sometimes that take place not because they were going to take place, but the very fear that they have pulled that thing into their life. So I think it's very important that we overcome this whole concept of having a spirit of fear, having a timid spirit. I'm not going to say anything. Every time I say something, bad things happen to me. God told me to do, to feed the poor. And every time I go to feed the poor, people get angry at me and it's very uncomfortable. I'm not going to do it anymore. And that is timidity. That is a spirit of fear. Because really, the only thing someone's going to do is maybe shout at you or say something mean to you. But there's no real danger. And especially no real danger if God tells you something and you do what God says. But what happens is that we live in a world where the enemy is master of fear. So sometimes the reason why we have unrealistic ideas of fear, we have unrealistic beliefs of fear, is because we have things on the inside of us, weaknesses or hurts or pains on the inside of us that can be influenced by people and by evil. So it's not that the evil is putting it in us, but they're influencing hurts that are already there. And then now creating strongholds or ideas that are not rooted in reality. So people will say, my life is horrible. I hate my life. It's terrible. I remember talking with one young person one time, and they hated their life because they couldn't get the newest shoes. And they hated their life because people made fun of their hat because their hat wasn't, I guess, I'm so lost, I can't really explain it, but their hat wasn't original, or their hat wasn't from the actual company. And they were killing themselves and everything like that. And all my mind could think about when they were talking is, you're a refugee. And 6 months ago you were in the desert and you didn't have no food to eat. And today you're talking to me about running shoes, and you're talking to me about a cap. But what I recognize is, when you come into an environment, the enemy has a way of distorting your view, causing you to have unrealistic perspectives, and then your own weaknesses on the inside of you are used against you to cause you to put yourself in pain, to put yourself through hardship, instead of allowing the Spirit of God to speak to you, to empower you, and to allow your mind to be in a place where it's free from fear. So when we talk about the spirit of fear, we're not talking about being afraid, because it's natural to be afraid. If you have a nightmare and you wake up from the nightmare, it's natural to be afraid. What's unnatural is to believe that you're still living in the nightmare when you're awake. That's the unnatural thing. But to be afraid, we're human. To be afraid actually is protection. In the Bible, there's a guy named Samson. And Samson, not only did he not have the spirit of fear, he didn't have the human nature of fear. He didn't fear anything. And because he didn't fear anything, he put himself in places that people who have human fear regularly wouldn't go. If I have human fear, there are some neighborhoods I'm not going to go to at night because I don't want to get a bullet. There are some people I'm not going to hang out with because they have a nefarious character and I don't know what's going to happen to them. So I will avoid them because I'm humanly afraid. I'm not timid. I'm not a coward. I'm not scared. But I recognize to be around them is to put myself in physical danger. So Samson, he puts his head on the lap of Delilah. She asks him, "Where do you get your power from?" He gives her a little clue, which is a lie. And then all of a sudden, the clue he gives her has become reality in his life. And then guys come, try to fight him, and he beats the people up. And she keeps doing this day in, day in, day in, day in, day in. By day 2, 3, most guys would say, "I'm getting out of here, man. This girl's trying to kill me." But he couldn't get it because he didn't have human fear. Human fear is a necessity for your survival. So when it talks about God did not give us a spirit of fear, it doesn't mean that God did not give us fear or God doesn't want us to have any fear. Because if God doesn't want us to have any fear, then we don't have any fear for him. If God doesn't want us to have any fear, that means when a truck is coming to us, we're not going to move. But when it talks about the spirit of fear, he doesn't want us to be overcome with fear of things that are not based in reality. I'm afraid. I'm afraid because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm afraid because I don't know if the enemy is going to come into my bedroom. I'm afraid because I don't know if I go down the street, if people are going to shoot me in Mississauga Road, the upper class area of Mississauga. I don't know if, I'm going to be able to pay for the gas, even though I got $1 million in my bank account. And we're fearing things that are wasting energy that don't make any sense. And we're talking about this whole idea of the spirit of fear is that this is a spirit that resides within all human beings if they do not take control of their life. Lack of control is the result of the spirit of fear. It's not the devil that's a result of the spirit of fear. It's when a person loses control of their life that produces fear. So in 2023, one of the things we want to do is We want God, obviously, to be our leader. We want God to be the one that strengthens us. We want God to be the one that leads us, but we also want to have a correct understanding of what it means to overcome the spirit of fear. Hello and God bless. My name is Neville Solomon, and welcome to our channel. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to our channel, and we'd love for you to be a part of our community.